Welcome to the session on determinants of foreign exchange rate. I am Vivek Sharma. I will be taking you through what decides the foreign exchange rate of a country in this particular video. If you like this video, I will request you to press the like button, and that will really help me to come out with more video on similar topics. Let me just quickly give you some insights about what determines the exchange rate. In economics, as we know, the price of goods and services depend upon forces of demand and supply. For any product, what decides the price is basically demand and supply. But not all goods or services are freely tradable. Now, what does this mean? This simply means that the goods and services all goods and services cannot be exchanged without restrictions. Okay, and currency is one such product where the price of currency, or the exchange rate as we call it, is not determined by forces of demand and supply alone, because currency being a very crucial or very critical commodity, it's something where the government controls are also there in many forms. So there are currencies in the world whose value is fixed and decided by monetary authority or by currency board arrangements in some cases. Let me just take you through how the value of the currency gets broadly determined all over the world, and then we'll come back to understanding how the value of currency is actually determined. Okay, so let us have a look at this particular slide. In this slide, as you can see that there are broadly four ways in which currency value can be determined. First is what we call as the hard pegs. So hard pegs basically means fixing the value of a currency against another currency. So in this kind of an arrangement, there is not a free movement of the value of the currency. So how does this work? For instance, if the value of currency A is fixed against the value of currency B, it will remain fixed for a very long period of time, and only after a certain period of time it will be allowed to be changed. So this kind of arrangements are also there in some countries where the currency value remains fixed. Then we have the soft peg. So soft peg is an kind of a improvement over the hard peg, because in case of soft peg, the value of currency is allowed to change or allowed to fluctuate, but within a range. It's like, there is a lot of what you call as restrictions on the movement of the currency, but it's still allowed to move much more than what it happens in case of hard pegs. And then what we have is the floating regimes. So in floating regimes, currency may be either just floating or freely floating. So freely floating is basically a scenario where there are absolutely no restrictions on the movement of currency, and currency value can change depending upon forces of demand and supply. Apart from these three arrangements, there can be a fourth arrangement also, which can be beyond all these three, and it will be put under the category of residual. Now, coming to the first question that where I started, and the first question was basically about how is the value of currency determined. So let us have a look at that to understand it. So what determines the value of a currency? If I have to answer that question, there are a lot of factors that will determine the value of a currency. One factor will be interest rate. In the international market, if interest rates in a particular country is higher than the other country, and if there is a free flow of money, the money should ideally move from those countries which have lower interest rates to the country which have higher interest rates. So movement of money from one country to the other country will have an impact on the value of currency. That's the first factor. Second factor to understand is inflation. Now, as the price of goods or services go up in a country, it becomes costlier. And because it becomes costlier when it is exchanged outside that country, there is an impact on the value of currency. So inflation becomes the second factor which will determine the value of a currency. Apart from this, share in international trade is also a very critical factor, because uh, ultimately the demand for a currency is nothing but demand for its goods and services. So if a country has good share in international trade, its currency value will change. And the countries which have very strong share in international trade, their currency also tends to remain stable over a long period of time. So we have seen that Chinese yuan or Chinese renminbi has been very stable over a period of time, and has been depreciated by the PBOC in China, depending upon the requirement of the Chinese economy. Then what also matters and what is very critical is the foreign direct investments. As the money comes into an economy from outside in different forms, in form of investments typically, that makes the value of a currency stable. So foreign direct investment will inflow of it will make a currency stronger, and outflow of it will make a currency weaker. Then government policies are also very important. While government does not formulate a direct policy, it works very closely with the monetary authority in the country, and that can help determine the value of a currency in a country. So monetary authorities from time to time use tools such as changing the interest rate, or sometimes even buying the assets, financial assets, which can have an impact on the value of the currency. And finally, what matters is the financial stability and the institutional strength in a country. Financial stability in a country is trusted by the outside investors, and as a result of which we often see the more flow of money happening into that country. Also, when you have trust and faith in a country in terms of its institutional setup, then more money flows into that particular country, and the currency value remains stable. So these are some of the factors that will determine the value of a currency. This was just briefly about this entire concept that I wanted to share with you. If you want any kind of detailed video on this, please contact me at viveksharma95@rediffmail.com. But just to tell you that in case you have liked this video, please press the like button. Thank you so much.